Hi there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind on my mind, and we will put our heads and hearts together and find a way to get from stuck to happy as fuck in the shortest amount of time possible. And in a way that this change is going to last, all right? Because, you know, all of us have experienced these times when we've had an aha moment or an epiphany, only to, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds to minutes later being like, what was that thing? I had it so clear. So it's about putting those moments together and in a way so that they are real, they are yours. And even if they do escape you, that moment was real, you acknowledge it. That's how you'll get more of it, okay? It's not ever that you lost it, that you ruined it, that you fucked it up beyond recognition and it's no longer available. Those things aren't true. So today is a little bit of, there's two different sort of things coming in, and I want to address them both. One of them is just what I started on, and I think that was actually being channeled from Spirit so that I can watch this video later. That when things are going great and you think, aha, I got it, and then they all fall apart again, it's not because they're actually getting worse. And how many times have I told you that? But luckily, I was doing some work yesterday and I had to go through my external hard drive and I was looking at all these memes I had created before about how you're not going backwards, it's a spiral, you're hitting it on another level, because that's exactly what is coming up again for me this week. There are some even physical symptoms that I haven't been dealt with for a couple of months to years, and now it's back and I'm like, what is going on? And it is not easy to have patience in the moment. And here is where I will stress the importance of having a coach and or a community, you know, in best case scenario, having both. Because it's easier. You know, you'll notice how it's easy to show up for somebody else and be there and believe that they can make it through. But when you're faced with the same level of intensity, your knees are buckling and you're just, I can't do this, because you're actually experiencing the suffering of the resistance. You're actually experiencing the changing, the tingling of the nervous system recalibrating, which might be actual tingles, but more or so it's probably going to be some fragmented, shitty thoughts and memories. As your brain and nervous system start to put things together and reconfigure them in a different way, it's fucking uncomfortable. This is the gift that we can be to each other, is to say, I'll hold your hand, I'll give you a hug and hold you together when you can, but I will also hold the vision of who I know you are becoming and what you are capable of. Because right now you can't see it because you're just in the middle of it, where sometimes we do have to unravel in order to reconfigure. Or sometimes things were just broken and now they're coming back online, but that too might feel weird. Also, if you'll notice, everybody's gotten a wound. We've all been, 8 years old and scraped our legs. And you remember how that wound would itch at a certain point? Now, the itching can be one of two things. And this is why, just like with spiritual and emotional wounds, we have to pay attention. The itch could be an indicator of an infection, because bacteria growing and proliferating will aggravate the tissue and it can cause an itch. So you have to look to see if there's pus, if there's heat, swelling, redness, then you'll know, oh, it got infected. It's dirty. We got to clean it out. We got to open it up and get that out. But sometimes it's healing great and it just itches and it makes you bonkers. You're just like, oh, let's take this Band-Aid off and scratch, and you'll scratch the scab off because it itches so bad. Like, that is actually the reintegration of your nerves in your skin coming back. And getting all to where it's aggravating. Even sometimes you'll notice this when your limb falls asleep, how it might be a little bit irritating, tingling, almost itching sometimes when the blood flow is coming back, because there's a heat and a warmth and fluid coming back into an area where it didn't have any. The nervous system's responding to that. It's not bad. It's just mildly irritating because it's different, but it's absolutely essential for full health and healing. The same is happening in our brains, in our bodies, in our emotions. Like in, not talking about the metabolic chemical, but in our feelings and the way we're interpreting things. There's going to be kind of this irritation and frustration when you're at that point where you know what you've been doing or what has been isn't working. Very, very clear on that. Maybe even having some information as what to do to move forward, what needs to change, what you need to release, what you need to build as a skill. And then it's that early practice part of being frustrated that you're just not fucking good at it, so you don't get to see the fruits of your labor yet. All you see are mistakes. You don't get that ecstatic sense of victory because you haven't mastered the process from start to finish yet. And sometimes when you're in the middle of it and it's lots of repetitions like that, that's where it's good to have somebody outside of you who can remind you, you're doing all the right things. You're still moving in the right direction. Just hang in there and give it a couple more repetitions because it's going to fall into place. But when you've seen multiple times that it hasn't, that you haven't mastered it, that there's still so far away to go, it can get kind of depleting. That's where sometimes we have to back off and rest because that might be, sometimes we have a tendency, especially those of us who are drivers and those who have some high addictive tendencies, want to keep pushing and keep pushing. And our reality's actually trained us to do that. You just keep going and keep going. Rest is not in opposition to flow. It's part of it. It allows it to continue. And we need to start getting that into our heads that taking a rest, taking a breath can be a pattern interrupt. And one of the patterns that we might be proliferating and persisting with is an abusive pattern where we keep pushing no matter what, saying we should have gotten it by now. The beatings will continue until morale improves. I'm not going to stop until I get it. Yeah, you're not going to stop until you get it, absolutely. That's your will. But that doesn't mean you can't rest when you need to so that you can let some oxygen into the system physically, literally, and metaphorically, okay? So having grace and ease with yourself in this process is really, really important. And actually something to practice because most of us don't know how to do it very well. What you can do is there is some process. Everybody gets what I call a gimme. There is some process that you are naturally gifted and have ease with. Look at it as a process and see how you can translate that and transfer that attitude, that level of spaciousness and ease into this other one. For instance, I have an ease with athletic training. It's just something that I understand if I want to do something I haven't done before, I'm not going to do it the best time, the first time, and never have to do it again. I'm going to have to practice. And I still have frustration with this. Like I'm learning tennis and I have seen Wimbledon. I love watching Wimbledon. So I know what is possible. I would like to be there, obviously. Not there, obviously, as I am just learning. But then how do I go from this to that? And again, having a coach is good because otherwise that impatience can come in. And I can be like, I should be doing this better. Oh, I can see what's possible, so I can have that, right? But how disrespectful is it of me to think I'm going to automatically have it when the people at Wimbledon have put in hundreds of thousands of hours of practice in order to be there? That's arrogant. That's just fucking obnoxious to think that I'm going to get there. But when it does come to athletic training, that's something I have an ease with to where I understand, okay, I have to do this. I can automatically know it's not exactly the same as volleyball, but here are some of the skills that I have that I can translate. Okay, as a beginner, my goal is this right now. My goal is consistency. It's not power. Because I have a lot of power because I'm strong, because I am athletic. But right now as a beginner, my goal is to hit it over and in anytime, every time it comes my way. That's my goal. That's how then when I get to be powerful, I can be powerful and consistent. You see how there's building blocks, okay? Instead of trying to skip steps. And then it's also knowing that I've done this with other sports and in other endeavors. I can do it. And if my shoulder starts to bother me, my elbow or something, I know exercises to strengthen and rehabilitate so that I can keep going. And I already also have had to say, I need a day off today. I don't feel ready to go again. I got frustrated with myself yesterday. My hamstring is acting up. I'm going to take a day off. And knowing how to do that. So then applying that to this spiritual, emotional trauma recovery journey of, okay, I can see people who are happy, healthy, make boatloads of money, who have good relationships, who are good communicators. That's possible. Here's also one thing that we can keep in frame. They might not be that in every fucking area of their life 100% of the time. We can stop making people into idols and thinking that they can't do it wrong. And it's not being gratified or glorified in other people's suffering or mistakes, but being realistic about what to expect of ourselves at any given time. Also, acknowledging I have put in a lot of work. I'm not starting from zero. I've got to acknowledge that I've already made gains. Otherwise, I am really beating myself up in a bad way and just not even being honest. And then, if you're not honest, your body's going to let you know. It's going to start throwing up some signs and symptoms, some yuck, because I'm not telling myself the truth. If I say, nothing's ever getting better, nothing's ever gotten better, that's a lie. It has. It is. Okay? So let's stop bullshitting ourselves. Then, knowing that sometimes it's just fucking hard. It's hard, and I do caution not to use the word hard because that will make it hard, but that there's going to be times where it's going to be frustrating because I'm learning something new that I'm not good at. I'm learning something new, and I do have filters that this should have happened already, that I should have had access to that. And so I'm basically just being resistant. And I just by now have to know that resistance is part of my process. And stop beating myself up for having it there either, okay? Because the more space I have for allowance of resistance, it passes more quickly too, okay? Then, to know what resources I have available and to get better at using them. And also being more realistic that, okay, there's frustrating, there's this discomfort and real yuck feeling. Like this morning, I had a conversation with somebody. I waited too long to say something, so when it came out kind of snippy. And that is being informed by, I used to tell everybody everything that bothered me as soon as it bothered me and assumed that it was because of them. And now I know I've got my own shit going on. So let me not say anything, sit with it and see if it's still a big deal in 5 minutes to 24 hours. But in this case, because we don't necessarily talk every day and it had been a couple of things that I didn't address, it didn't come out very effectively, I don't think. I don't like how I feel right now. That's how I know. So now I'm having to run it through the filter of, is it not uncomfortable because I just am such a people pleaser and I hate the thought of people being mad at me, and I have a fear that if somebody's mad at me, the relationship's over. That's my biggest fear. So is it really that that's getting aggravated, and or is it both or whatever? That I could have said it or delivered it in a better way, and I wished I would have. And I actually believe both of those are true, so I'm giving myself some time to feel my feelings. And because what I'm doing here in my life, that you guys are being witness to as I talk about it in Power Hours with other things, is learning that people can be trusted. Learning that friendships, healthy relationships are possible, where I don't have to overgive, overextend, have no boundaries, that I can fuck up and somebody's still going to be like, I get it, I didn't like it, but it's okay. And it's funny that that's even in question for me, because I know I can do this for other people. So why I think that nobody else could do that for me is interesting, but that's some training that I've had that I'm having to untrain and unlearn. And I do believe I am going to have to apologize to this person and say, I wish I had done it better. I should have brought this to you sooner. This is what I've actually been feeling, but I didn't know how to say it, and so I just didn't, and that's on me. And you know what? We're both going to live. Even if the relationship does fall apart, we're both going to live. But I actually think it's going to make it easier for us to communicate in the future. There you have it. Okay, it's practice, practice, practice. It's uncomfortable as fuck, but you know what? There is no way, unless it is your intent to see you as a perennial fuck up, that there is absolutely no way that you can actually practice and not get better. That you cannot put in some reps and get some degree of change and increased strength and ability, emotional resilience. Okay? And my guess is because that is your intent, that is what you're going for, it's absolutely happening. So one of the other things that I wanted to address is what I actually wrote the outline on, was about how when you're stuck, when it is something, you're moving along your process and it's something that does keep coming up, and what do I do when I feel like I'm stuck, I'm beating my head against the wall, I'm super, super frustrated, I don't feel like I'm making progress, and actually even objectively I am stalling, like what's going on? There's a couple of things. One of them is, what is this really? Sometimes it might be a sign of exhaustion, to where it is counterintuitive, and that what the discomfort will be is not doing something that makes sense to rest when we know we still want to get somewhere. It's almost like, I mean, and if you've ever been with anybody who's an over-the-road truck driver, they are mandated to take rest because they know it's not safe to keep going and never stop, because companies would let them do that for a long time, and there were lots of accidents. So now they're having to say, you have to take a break in order to get to where you're going. That's an absolute necessity. The same is true for us. We're physical beings. We aren't perpetual motion machines. We aren't robots. We're also processing spiritual and emotional material at the same time, taking in lots of energies when we're interacting with other people. That's all being done in and with through our bodies. So there sometimes is a time when we need physical rest, and it might be emotional symptoms that's actually signaling us. So sometimes we have to ask, what is it really? It might be a need for rest or play or space. And I also know that when I have a difficult time making really simple decisions, like what do I want to eat for dinner? Do I want to eat dinner? What is my name? That's when I've lost connection with me. I've become really involved in somebody else's process and figuring out timelines and how to get this to work together, to where it's like, I just need me time. Yesterday, I actually put my phone on airplane mode while I meditated and stretched, and just doing that brought some peace, because I knew I was waiting to hear back from somebody, but I knew I wasn't going to actually be able to relax fully if I was waiting for that. So I was like, I'm just going to take it off the table, because I didn't know when I was going to hear back, but I'm like, I'm just going to take that off the table so that I can't be interrupted right now. And then come to find out, the person was trying to contact me while I was meditating. I was like, hey, it was on airplane mode, so I got that. And there's no problem. We can do that. We can take time for ourselves and reconnect. And I felt so much better afterwards, okay? Also knowing that a lot of symptoms that are emotional, physical, even a lot of them mental, the majority of symptoms are deficiency symptoms. Now, you might gather that from what I talk about, a lot of it is a lack of time, space, and love. Those are a lot of times our own attention, our own affection. There are things that we are craving that we know we want and need, and we're absolutely refusing to give them to ourselves. We can do that. It may be a deficiency of time, attention, affection, love in some way, okay? It may have also progressed to a level of physicality to where there is what's called a cybernetic loop. That's more emotional, but our physicality will also inform our emotionality and our ability to connect with spirit because they're one, okay? So what I started recognizing was that I've been having a lot of physical things and I've been chasing symptoms. This is good for this. This is good for this. This is good for this. And then I remembered, oh, right, you're a naturopathic doctor, JOYLYN. Do you see? No wonder these things aren't working. That's another thing. When things aren't working as intended, it's because it's something else. And so I've been having all these digestive issues and taking this supplement because it's good for this and this one because it's good for this. But then I'm having where I'm playing tennis and my wounds aren't healing. And I'm getting acne that I haven't had in months and years. And I am waking up and it's really hard to get out of bed. Like I just don't feel like it. Like that's how it's been for a couple of days. I've noticed I've been losing more hair in the shower and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Well, a lot of these are signs of a thyroid. And a lot of them actually, I know I have some mineral imbalance, so I sent in a test. I'll get that information back so I can get the appropriate supplement. And also fatty acid. Like a lot of it was neuromuscular and neurological. There were a couple of essential fatty acids that's actually, and even some of the skin, like the inability to heal, because these essential fatty acids are part of every single cell membrane and the myelin sheath in your nervous system. So then I got what I needed that's actually going to address multiple symptoms at once because it's what the real problem was. And it's a little bit embarrassing that it took me this long because this has happened previously in my life when I had thyroid issues pop up, you know? And again, it's not that I'm doing anything bad or wrong. There is so much I'm doing with changing how I exercise, changing how I eat, changing with and who I'm relating with. My sleep, although through all of this, my sleep is so much better. So that it's like there are signs that I'm going in a positive, but in order to heal, my body is needing extra nutrition and I wasn't delivering that. I was kind of ignoring that. So now that we can put that piece in, things will start turning around. And if they don't, then you ask, okay, what else could it be? All right? But just knowing that a lot of times, and I think a question to come in about processing and feeling how good it is to get those clicks and ahas, that we can get into the processing for processing's sake and get to, and I can do this from time to time, get so into, I do believe wholeheartedly, 100%, everything has an energetic basis. Everything has an energetic basis, which means it's going to express itself energetically, emotional first, and then physical last, because this is the densest, slowest vibrating part. However, there are times where when it gets to the physical part, the amount of energy and change in the limiting belief is so much that the physicality actually is getting in the way. You have to treat the symptom at that point. The physicality, and honoring it as a part of the spiritual, not as something separate, not as something less than. It's all about how we're moving all of this and becoming more of ourselves. That includes our magical meat suit and what we can do and be with it. That is part of our spirituality. That's part of why we incarnated here at all. So let's have fun with it. Let's love it and give it what it needs, instead of saying, you stupid piece of shit, why are you just making life miserable for me? Which is what I actually said the other day to it. Sounds loving? Yeah, I have bad moments, okay? This is why you go back to your own coaching, you get your own coach, and you have friends that help you be like, hey, maybe you need to take a nap. Maybe you need some rest. Maybe you need some essential fatty acids. Yeah, so it happens to the best of us, guys. So don't beat yourself up. It's all about getting out of judgment, okay? So what is it really? Is it a need for rest? Is it a need for some sort of nutrition? Be that physical, emotional, or spiritual, okay? Because sometimes it might be a spiritual disconnect and we actually need to tune into being a part of something greater, because when we get really isolated, we can also act kind of funky too, okay? So what is it really? Then, here's another thing that I have a client who's working on. Same thing keeps coming up, and she's done lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of work and made a lot of progress to where now I'm wondering, is it hers? Do you know sometimes we fight the hardest for something that's not ours? Like, in some way, shape, or form, be it this lifetime or another, we agreed to heal something for someone else. But we can't totally heal it if it's not ours to heal in the first place. We could heal the part of us that took it on. We can heal the part of us to that it's extending, but when something just plain straight won't go away, it might be because it's not ours to deal with. And then we just have to kindly return to sender. That is an energetic process. And again, with that, there might be some clasping and clinging to it and trying to bring it back in because we've gotten so used to it. We might first interpret it as meanness, like we're just dropping it back in somebody else's lap. But really, it wasn't for us. Even if our intent was kindness, it was actually unkindness. Because if we took on something that was an unkindness to ourselves to take on something that we didn't necessarily need, and perhaps we did it because we're brilliant and what we needed to learn was boundaries and how to give something back. Another thing is to trust somebody that they can do it for themselves. When we take things on, and this is a lot happens in parent-child relationships, and let me tell you, those switch a lot in lifetimes, okay? If you're the parent this time, you might have been the kid last time, okay? So we take things back and forth to where it's like, oh, I don't want you to suffer. I don't trust that you can handle it. Let me take that for you. And it seems like it's nice, but it's actually not necessary anymore. And also, because we're in an ascending process, the laws, karma is changing. It's not required. But what that means is we have to step off the wheel. If you heard say wheel of karma, you have to step off of it. Otherwise, you'll just go around again. Okay, that's our effort. That's where we use rests, breaths, pauses, pattern breaks to step off those cycles so that we don't have to repeat them. And again, caution not to get too attached to process and start questioning everything about yourself or your life, because hey, the whole point of all of this is happiness. We came to know who we were, to have an experience that was only available with these particular set of circumstances just because we set up the game at the beginning and said, I'd like to learn this and I think I'm going to learn it in this way. Now, how can we have fun with that? And what's interesting is some of the symptoms that I got, I've been having a lot of trouble with tendonitis in my feet and my lower legs, and I was like, all right, body, I'm so sick of you not talking English. I'm just going to, sometimes I can journal, and I can quiet my mind enough to get that. And what it said was stay put. And I thought, I was like, dang it, I'm ready to run. I am tired of that. But what it meant was stay put here. I still sometimes get a little bit crunchy of why did I even choose to be here? Early life was pretty shitty. Am I making a difference at all? Like, things aren't growing or going the way that I want to. Like, what the fuck was I thinking? I'm just so stupid for having incarnated and thinking that I could do or be different. And then it's just like, just stay put. Because do you know, and I think that you've had this experience at least once at this point, that when it's so fucking black, that for whatever reason later that afternoon or the next day, it's not, and you have no idea where it even went. You don't know where it came from and where it went, but all of a sudden things are just better. It's like you just broke through a barrier. So that if you've had that experience, acknowledge it, because it's possible every single time. We just don't know when, we don't know how. All we have to do is be present with ourselves. Do I need rest? Do I need to get my ass in gear? Sometimes that also is true. Things might not be moving because I haven't been making a move, okay? We just got to be honest with ourselves. And then no matter what it is, to take it as information, not as a stick to beat ourselves with, okay? Okay, I need nutrients. I go get them. There. Now it's already changing. Okay? I need rest. Okay, let me put my phone on silent for a couple minutes there. It's already changing. I need a hug. Let me try to hug myself first. Hey, that wasn't so bad. I think I still want another one. I'm going to ask somebody to give me a hug. Okay, not so bad. You know, this thing has been bothering me. I need to share it. I'll write it in my journal because everybody, it's 1 a.m. So I'm going to do, okay, I feel better. Still there? Okay, let me call somebody that I trust to really, who will tell it to me straight. And then sometimes it does. It gets to a point where you're just like, fuck this. Everything sucks. Nothing's getting better. That's when you get a coach. Actually, hopefully before that point, so that you have a little bit more clarity of somebody saying, yeah, it feels like that sometimes. Even when everything is going absolutely perfectly and in the order that was supposed to, the way that the process is designed, sometimes it still feels like shit. But you know what? It's okay. And don't make those moments of feeling like shit any marker that you're succeeding. That's the problem with addiction to process. We will actually start going for shit thinking that we're making progress. Our happiness has to be the marker of success. How often we're having it, how intense it's feeling, how long we are willing to hold it and be with it before we fuck it up. Okay, because that's all of our patterns here. That's what we know how to do. Let's just laugh about it. It's true, guys. Our nervous systems got calibrated to a very little bit of happiness so that when it comes in, we get kind of uncomfortable. We got to hot potato that out of our lap. We've all been there. We've all done that, okay? And also it might be because, maybe not just because you're just stupid and you can't have happiness. It might be because you're actually breaking a barrier and going into something you have never known about yourself, because you do get to have novel experiences in this life if you choose. And so it might just be, and here's what we're learning about stress: moderate, predictable, and controllable, to where we can't, our nervous systems are, by virtue of our physicality, we can't always get everything we want when we want it all at once. That's why we do the baby steps every time we're learning, every time we're doing a process, every time we're having a conversation and trying to draw a boundary. We are actually recalibrating our nervous system to be able to handle it full time. But our marker for success is when we're there full time, so we have to acknowledge it each and every time we do it. So that then we look around, we're like, that thing that used to bother me, that isn't there anymore. If it shows up in a couple of years, don't say it's because you fucked up. It's like you're hitting it on another level, okay? It's just going to be like that. But the more that we can lay down resistance to this is how it is, and actually just roll with things and look to enjoy our experience and know that we're creating it, we're building this shit as we fly, okay? Like our life. And it's going to be our reactions and what we're willing to tolerate and how much love we're willing to give ourselves and how the skills we're willing to build. And then they start to come together, and then it's like, wow, it can be this good. It can. Let's get there. And let's make that our goal, not how much hardship we can handle and process and make it through. Not the time, the amount of time that it takes to do it. I know that's mine. I like to race. But just having it. Because isn't having it worth it? I think so. Otherwise, an infinite being who actually is infinitely and intrinsically connected to Source wouldn't have agreed to be here to create this kind of adventure if it wasn't worth it at all. So let's start trusting ourselves that there was some reason that we came to be here, and if we can't really think of one because nothing makes sense and our early life was a little bit crappy, maybe it can just be for fun. I just came to know myself, and look, I've done all those things. I made it through, so I can live through a lot. So now that I know that I can trust that I can. I don't need to make any more new obstacles and ways to prove myself. So how about I take what I've learned and see how now I can get curious about how good it could be. And when I get negative feedback that I don't like, that's not a sign that I'm doing anything wrong. It's either something that's coming up to go, because there's still some stuff that's got to go that I was still attached to, okay? Or it might be that I have a deficiency and I need attention, affection, love, or nutrition, or water, or something like that. Or I need some rest, and it's just as simple as that. I just need a break. Because sometimes things just need time to integrate. Or I think there was something else, but I lost it. But it's, let's do this. Let's make happiness what we're going for. And anytime we're not experiencing happiness is not an indication that we're doing something wrong. It's just an indication that something different is needed right now in this moment, and that's it. It's just feedback. The only thing that makes it positive or negative feedback is if we like it or not, okay? That's really it. That's the truth. So that's my invitation for you this Power Hour, that I very much thank you for joining me. It is always a pleasure. I think I'm going to watch this one, because especially that beginning track, I think I need to hear a couple more times, because it's been a doozy of a week. But hopefully this also helps you in your process to keep going when the going gets tough, because it does get tough sometimes. And sometimes the tough is just because we are resistant as fuck. All right, so we'll let go of that resistance together and hold hands and smile into the sunset of our happiness. All right, sound fun? Until next week, I love you guys so much, and I look forward to talking to you again next Wednesday. Mwah.